money's being
Let's
used for
roll.
something else. And I'm like, no, it's put in a specific fund. They're gonna hear me saying that. So
We have to
what
the
day is
13th,
it?
right? Yeah. All right.
The 15th.
15th, really?
Yeah.
I
On my computer it says. Right,
I guess
sure.
mine says 20 degrees and cloudy. Can't be 20 out. All right. The January 15th meeting of the Improvement Service Committee will come to order for our happy band, and we'll note that all members are present. Alder Presley, Alder Dooley, Alder Eck, and Alder Weary.
That was a quick way of doing
Yeah.
it. We could do that.
No, I thought I'd change it up, you know, don't want to be stale. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Dooley, second by Alder Eck to approve any changes. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alder Presley, second by Alder Dooley to approve the minutes. Changes there. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Regular business. Number one, consideration with possible action on request by Dan Vu to install a sign in the right-of-way at 716 Bodard Street, subject to the execution of the hold harmless agreement and submittal of appropriate insurance, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement.
So these are largely procedural items. Anyone who is looking to install a sign on the base of their building that is going to project across, out into the public right-of-way, either a flag sign, or if it's a flush mount sign that's like words across the face of the building, but that's going to project out because downtown zoning is zero lot line. So if you have 6-inch thick letters, illuminated letters, those are going to actually be out in the right-of-way. We have a standard form hold harmless agreement that we require folks to enter into that provides that protection, liability protection for the city should something happen unfortunate, like the sign falls and lands on somebody, or, you know, more often, it gets a snow or ice accumulation on it and that falls on somebody. I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time. So Tom Giese, our right-of-way specialist, former right-of-way specialist, came up with the revocable occupancy permit and hold harmless for these signs. So pretty straightforward. Again, it's a standardized agreement that we have, but again, we're entering into an agreement for an object to reside within the public right-of-way. So we want the council and committee to weigh in and ultimately council approval for that.
And the next one's the same.
All right, yeah, next one is the same thing. Questions on this one? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by Alder Dooley to approve. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes. Number two.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Alder Presley, second by Alder Dooley to approve. It's another consideration of possible request, Greg Metek to install a sign in the right-of-way, 240 North Broadway, Suite B.
Correct.
Okay, just to read it for.
Yeah, we could have probably taken them both up.
Yeah, true.
Good.
True. No discussion on that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes.
Well, I'm assuming you're okay with it.
You would have been jumping up and down.
Yeah, we are. We go through all of the legwork with the applicants to make sure that the sign not only meets the sign ordinance, we coordinate that work with community and economic development to make sure they're all on board with it. By the time we bring it here, staff is in support of it, and we simply want the authorization to enter into the agreements.
Okay.
And when Director Vernier is in opposition, his face gets darker.
Yeah, you know it. I'm not a good poker player.
3, consideration with possible action and request by Department of Public Works to award professional services contract for native vegetation management at stormwater facilities to NES Ecological Services and McMahon Associates, Inc.
So with the stormwater management facilities we have located across the city, the large regional facilities, they have some pretty specialized vegetation. These things essentially act kind of like wetlands on the upland portion, and then it's a pond in the middle. So to make sure that the vegetation, we have the native vegetation is promoted, invasive species are called out of there, and that the vegetation is adequate. We're not getting bare spots doing the maintenance. It really requires somebody who's got a background in native vegetation. That's not something that I can send operations out there and cut the grass like they would in the right of way. So NES Ecological Services here in Green Bay, and McMahon is down Appleton and Valley. They were designers on many of these facilities, and they do have those wildlife ecologists on staff who've got the training necessary to, and with some of these facilities, you don't mow them. You do prescribed burns for vegetative maintenance. So they've got the staff on hand to do that. They know exactly what they're doing. We've been working with these folks for several years. We enter into multi-year contracts, but every couple of years after that contract expires, we do want to go out, test the market, see what's out there, make sure that we're still getting the best bang for the buck. And that's the case here. Their contracts have expired. We've gone around, taken a look at consultants. We're still comfortable with Robert E. Lee and our NES and McMahon Associates, so we are requesting that we enter into that contract.
I may or may not have had a mother-in-law who tried to control burn. Okay, anymore, so that's another story. Any questions? Oh, Rick.
And I know I brought this up before, and I did read the entire thing. And the one concern, I don't know, is there a way to find an alternative to Roundup? Because I just think, and I'm looking at like it's spraying right next to the water, and I just hate that idea.
Again, because of the type of people that we're employing here, it's spot application, it's done by hand, we're not out there broadcast spraying everything. Roundup still has its use. So for certain invasive species, like Phragmites, that's the only thing that'll work, and what you do is you cut the Phragmite off, take the stalk, and then the part that's still in the root, you direct apply it there. You don't spray it on the ground around it, you direct apply it to the cut, like the graft area, if you will. And that's how it goes down in the root system. So it's still, sometimes they don't call it Roundup, sometimes they call it glyphosate instead. It's a really nice name to use the
Yeah.
generic instead, but it's the same stuff, right? It still has its use. Again, if you're being judicious on how you use it and it's being hand applied how these guys are doing it, I don't have a concern with it.
I mean, I know they're experts at it.
Yeah.
At home, I use an alternative with like a lot of, salt and
Right.
different things, like there's things done with just, which is not overly practical from a municipal standpoint, but
Right.
I just know the dangers of it, so
Right.
just have to put that out there.
Questions, motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alder Delige, second by Alder Presley. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go back to that. That passes.
We'll have it.
Well, to have it if everybody said yes, and I say, anybody opposed? Nobody's
I
left.
know,
Just
I
have it.
said,
All right.
I've done that.
Consideration with possible action on request by Department of Public Works to enter into a master agreement with Berners Schober Associates, Inc. for the projects between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2026, and to authorize the Director of Public Works to execute subsequent service orders.
Okay, so not too dissimilar from the vegetative maintenance contract we're talking about. Berners Schober is architect engineering. They have both services. And there are a number of projects, especially you just talked about the Light Park shelter. That requires architectural services. So there are a lot of existing buildings that the city has under our control that require architectural services. He has utilized for longer than I care to think about. I've seen contracts in our files going back earlier than the 70s, where we were using BSA for various things. It's nice having a firm that is an architecture engineering firm, so that they have both engineering and architecture that work together. The two disciplines working within the same firm, so that we don't have to have separate services and have two different firms working together. Much like what I was talking about with the pond maintenance services, we do want to go out and check to make sure we are still being prudent with the dollars. What I can tell you is the rates that we are being quoted for BSA, you will not find those rates for any AE firm in our area. Berners Schober appreciates the relationship that they've had with the city, so they make sure that we are paying very, very competitive rates for their services. So we're happy with the service line we have. Again, they're only a block away from us or so. It's not uncommon for us to be walking back and forth between the two offices to make sure, and they've been a responsive firm, so staff is recommending entering into an agreement for the next 2 years.
Motion to approve.
All right, motion
Second.
to approve by Elderack, second by Alder Lee. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Number 5, consideration with possible action on request by Department of Public Works on a parking rental agreement for a proposed development at 425 Pine Street.
So somebody is looking at redeveloping the old US Bank building downtown.
Well,
So a tall white one. And they have approached the city asking for parking within the Pine Street ramp. So what we have inside of, in the packet is one of our typical parking agreements that sets out terms and conditions under which they will be able to rent from us. Again, remember, we changed the discount structure last year after we adopted, as part of the implementation of the parking study. So this will be at market rate. There is no discounting with the number of passes that they are requesting. And we've been working on this through the development team and the parking division for, probably the last month and a half. So staff does support and recommends approval of the parking rental agreement.
all right.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Elderack to approve.
Second.
Second by Alder Lee. Any questions from anybody? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Do they have, sorry, can I?
Yeah.
Do they have parking underneath? I mean, I feel like there was some parking there with the.
There
the
is
bank
some,
had too.
but
Yeah.
they're converting, that was when it was primarily a bank and an office. They are converting the, I think, floors 1, 2, at least 1 and 2, possibly 1, 2, and 3 will be continue to operate as a bank. But the upper floors are being converted to housing. So they're gonna have a higher density, they're gonna need more parking than what they have on site.
Thank you. Number 6, consideration with possible action on the request by Department of Public Works on the review and approval of the 2025 special assessment factors and rates.
Okay, so Jim has provided to you in the packet a memo that explains construction projects that we have evaluated over the last year. And what we do is we look for asphalt and concrete streets. We come up with what's called an assessment factor. And the assessment factor represents what it will cost to build that street new. Then by ordinance, the ordinance says for this type of street, you can assess 90% of the assessment factor or 60% of the assessment factor. So the assessment factor is where we're doing our computations based on recent construction in the city, and then the ordinance dictates the assessment rates that go along with that. So as we get into the pavement assessment rates, I'll show you on the documentation where that comes in. So with this, Kyle Vanderloop, who's our construction manager, he's formerly one of our engineering technicians. Kyle did a lot of the baseline information with Pat Volsky, showing you the trends in asphalt pavement construction costs over time. Then on page 3, they start with the concrete pavement assessment, and then going to page 4 of the memo, you can see the similar trends on asphalt resurfacing. Then we actually get into the table of rates that we're looking at for this year. So starting on page 1, sanitary sewer, they're based on construction costs year to year. They are not recommending increasing the assessment rates for sanitary sewer in 2025. They will stay, sewer will be at 85, oh, I take that back. Sanitary sewer main is going up by $20 a front foot. But the sewer with rock excavation, we've not installed sewer and rock in many, many years, so we have no cost to compare it to. The sanitary connections, 4 and 6 inch, are staying at their 2024 rates as well. Storm sewer is what I was thinking of. Storm sewer is not going up this year. So storm sewer mains are staying at $65 a foot, 6 inch connection at $1,150, 12 inch connection at $2,050, and a stormwater management fee at $4,200 per ERU. That stormwater management fee in lieu of, if you're redeveloping a property and you don't have enough room to build a stormwater management facility on your property and there is a regional facility nearby that you can discharge to, you can actually kind of buy your way into a regional pond that way. Water utility, Green Bay Water Utility sets the rates for the water assessments, and it looks like water is not changing from 24 to 25 either. Then we go on to the next page for street construction, and you will see that assessment rates for the assessment factor for asphalt pavement is increasing from $175 a front foot to $195 a front foot. Similarly, concrete pavement is proposed to increase from $245 per front foot to $265 per front foot. Then, as I had indicated previously, based on the ordinance tells us that certain percentages of that assessment factor go into the various types of streets. So a type A street is going from 175 feet to $195 per front foot in residential zones. Asphalt pavement, 175 per front foot for other classifications, up to 195 per front foot. Concrete paved streets, all other zone classifications, type A, 245 to 265. Type B street, which is an urbanization, so there's an existing street out there that doesn't have curb and gutter, and we're turning it into a curb and guttered street. Residential zones, asphalt pavement goes from 105 to 117. Concrete goes from 105 to 117. All other than residential zones, asphalt 157.50 to 175.50. Concrete $220.50 to $238.50. Type C streets, which is our typical reconstruct, the fully urbanized street that's being reconstructed. Local streets, residential zones, both asphalt and concrete are proposed to go from $52.50 to $58.50. In residential zones, we don't discriminate between asphalt and concrete. We don't want to penalize a residential house being located on a concrete street. Residential zones on bus or heavy traffic are proposed to go from $47.25 to $52.65. All other zone classifications for local streets, asphalt proposed to go from $113.80 to $126.80. Concrete streets from $159.30 to $172.30. SDP and NHS roads, that's our arterials, or actually our collectors and above. Residential zones, again, both classifications, asphalt and concrete from $35 a front foot to $39. Residential on bus routes, both will go from $31.50 per foot to $35.10 per front foot. All other zone classifications, asphalt $113.80 to $126.80. Concrete from $159.30 to $172.30, and then asphalt resurfacing. The assessment factor is proposed to go up from $45 per front foot to $47.50. So residential zones will go up from $27 to $28.50. Residential zones on a bus route, $24.30 to $25.65. And all other zone classifications from $40.50 to $42.75. We have also started over the last several years to publish the interest rate for unpaid special assessments. For those streets that do get assessed. So type A streets, if we got a type A street, a brand new street, never been platted before, we would still levy assessments for that if it wasn't covered under a developer's agreement. Property owner can pay any, all, or none of that bill within 30 days of receipt. Anything that remains unpaid after the 30 days goes into an automatic 5-year payment plan. And if it goes into the payment plan, the city has to bond money to pay the contractor, and then we'll recover it over 5 years. Part of the bond issuance costs and the administrative costs going into sending out the bills over a 5-year period, what we do is we take the interest rate itself off of the bond plus 2% for administration. So interest rates are targeted at 3.9% on our bonding this year, plus 2% sets it at 5.9. Any questions?
Alder?
So I, just for, like a clarification, so these are assessment rates, but because of the wheel tax, the residential, they don't pay, but this would be, say, if there was a business located on a residential, they would pay 50%?
They would pay 50% of the posted rate that's here, correct?
Okay, because that really would be the only reason we would have this.
Well, no,
I
again.
mean, you have to figure it out, but,
No,
Right? Okay.
well, I need it for the type A streets for new streets that, because those are still assessed.
oh, okay.
Technically, we never rescinded our assessment ordinance when the wheel tax came into being. So we're still levying assessments, we're just not issuing the invoice to the property owner, we're sending the invoice to the wheel tax fund instead. So we technically still levy assessments for everything.
Okay, makes sense, thank you. That's it?
Any questions on it? Who wants to approve some rate increases? There we go, there's
Motion
the
to
big spender.
approve. The big
Motion by
spend, oh, it's
Alderich.
all on me.
Way to go, Alder, she's all
Can
for
we
this.
lower it before I?
Anybody want to
before
second
I
her big
approve?
spending over here?
I'll
Oh,
second.
wow.
Cost of doing business, right?
He
All right,
sounded
second
really-
by Alder Delay.
He sounded enthusiastic on his second.
Any discussion? Thanks for putting that together. Always thorough, as usual.
Yes.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that carries.
Well, I'm not really in favor, but I'm
Yeah.
approving it.
What are you gonna do?
Yes.
Not do? On to number 7, report the award of request for quote, police station partial re-roof project to Mathena Roofing and Sheet Metal Inc. in the amount of $25,803.
So this is one that the anticipated cost of construction was less than $25,000, so utilizing the purchasing department, we went out for quotations. The quotes came back at $25,803, so that is about the $25,000 threshold. In purchasing, we are not obligated to go to competitive bid situation under competitive bidding statute because there was a reasonable expectation going into the project that it was less than $25,000. However, by our purchasing guidelines, we can't award that at a staff level. It does become public construction, so we're bringing it in, or we can award it, but because of the $25,000, we do have to report it out. So what we are doing is just reporting out. We did get 3 quotes in for the partial re-roof at the police station. Low responsible respondent, was Mathena Roofing at $25,803, so staff did award that contract, and work should be progressing in the not-too-distant future.
So receive and place,
Yes,
motion to
please.
receive and place on file.
All right, yeah, that sounds good. Motion by
second
Alder
that.
to receive and place on file, second by Alder Delay. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
We get to take all these.
Number 8, yeah, let's do these all together here. Report of actions taken by the Department of Public Works. We have granting licenses to sidewalk builders, tree and bush trimmers, and underground sprinklers. They've all been granted a license. Any questions on any of these?
Being the first meeting of the year, the list is rather substantial.
So,
We used to go one at a time and,
Yes, we did. And you had to approve each one of them individually.
yes.
do we have to do the whole, suspend the rules and take them all?
No, because
You re-reported it.
council
They're
gave
all
us the
one.
authority to award the
Yeah,
licenses, but we report them out so that you have them.
okay, so.
So it's simply a receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place
All
on
right,
file.
receive and place on file. Alder Rec, second by Alder Presley. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Consideration with possible action, this is number 9. Consideration with possible action on request by WPS for utility easement in 8th Street Park to run electricity to a new siren site.
So down in the 8th Street Park is one location that one of the tornado warning sirens is recommended to be installed. But WPS does not have electrical facilities at that location, so they have come to us. They will not run a line across private property on a handshake anymore. They do want a recorded easement. So this is simply seeking authority from committee and the common council to enter into the easement, to record an easement across the 8th Street Park to serve the siren. Staff obviously does support this.
Motion to approve, sorry.
Yes.
Second.
Motion to approve by Alder Rec, second by Alder Delete. Questions, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That carries. And I was remiss at the beginning, these are recommendations to the council next week, Tuesday the 21st, so we'll be right at everything, of course. Right, you always are.
I don't foresee any problems.
Informational Director's Report.
There is really only one thing that I wanted to advise the committee on tonight, and that is some very, very good news. As of last week, the RRFB project that we have been working on for 2 years, that's funded partially with city ARPA money and partially with the school district ARPA money, the RRFB bases are all installed. So we are waiting for cure time on the concrete, and the first RRFB bases that were installed prior to Christmas have RRFBs on them already. So over the next 4 to 6 weeks, as time and weather allows, obviously at 20 below wind chills, I don't want my electrician standing outside putting up RRFBs, right? So as time and weather allows, the electricians have all the RFB assemblies at the East Side shop, and they are all constructed. It's simply a matter of going out and tilting them up and putting them on the bases. So we do anticipate by the end of February, we should have all of the RFBs in action out in the field.
You told Alder Galvin?
The one that is at Emily Street crossing Webster Avenue was the very first one we constructed.
I saw it.
We'll just see if he notices.
What? Mr. Popping up.
Is that 60 of them, Steve? 60-ish?
What's that?
Around 60 of them?
60-ish. If you're really interested, if you go to the city's website and on the search bar, type in GIS Hub or go to Department's Information Technology and GIS Hub, that will bring you to, obviously, the GIS Hub, which is a landing zone for a number of web-based forward-looking maps, or outward-looking maps that are available for everybody to look at. And there is one there relative to the Safe Walk and Bike Plan, which is where we put the RRFBs. In real time, as we update them, you can go in there, you can see there's an asterisk marking the location of the proposed RRFB in red, and as the RRFB goes up and is installed, it gets turned to green.
Thanks.
So that's phase one of the project. Once we complete that, the traffic engineer, Tom Shermans, and I, and Jim, will be sitting down to determine how much funding is left. The second phase of that project is a driver feedback information sign. So it's a sign that has the posted speed limit, and then your speed will flash at you. So you're used to the trailers that the police department uses. This is actually on a signpost, does the same thing. So they're meant for permanent installation. There were 38 locations preliminarily identified in the study. Some of them may be near schools that are targeted for closure. And the RFB contract came in higher than we had hoped for. So what we'll do is we'll sit down with that list, compare it to the amount of available funding we have, coordinate back with the school district to verify that if we need to make cuts or there are some that are no longer necessary, get that list figured out, but these things don't have as much of a substantial base to them as the RFBs. And we'll go ahead and we'll get those ordered and hopefully installed prior to school starting in the fall.
Thanks for keeping 9th Street down there.
Do those capture data as well?
They do not. It's simply meant as an advisory.
Okay, just a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
One of the problems with capturing data is
Your school's getting torn down.
having somebody to do something with it.
No, I get it, but if we ever want it, at least we can go get it versus having to send you out with the tubes again and.
Right.
I had some. How many of those are planned?
Just a comment, if I could.
Alder Presley first.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
I
Okay.
heard him first, sorry, you know?
I raised my hand way
No,
early.
I didn't raise my hand, I just asked my question. How many of the speed things are planned?
The original plan had 38 locations.
Okay.
So we're gonna go back and verify whether, because some of these may have, the RRFBs were a combination of school zones and other zones, high pedestrian traffic zones. Almost all of the driver feedback signs were targeted towards school zones.
Gotcha.
So if there are schools on that list that are either closed or targeted for closure, obviously we don't want to put a driver feedback sign that was intended for school zones in a closed school area.
Gotcha. So there's not one for East Shore Drive?
Well,
By Wildlife Sanctuary, I believe.
yeah, I think there is one by the wildlife sanctuary where the RRFB is going in.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Oh,
Well, there you go.
that'll be a nice thing to tell the neighborhood association.
Yours flashes, you are going too bleep fast instead of showing your speed limit. It's kind of a new one. That's
Too
one to
bleeping
show
fast.
speed
Oh.
limit.
Oh, yeah, that's a,
Anything else, Alder Preston?
no, that's
Okay,
it.
Alder.
Anybody else before I speak? No, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so I've had positive feedback on the blinking
Good.
lights and stuff. And then somebody's like, whose idea was the blinking lights? And I'm like, well, technically, I guess it was the school board. They came and then we had to do the million towards it and then get paid back from
Well,
that,
it was
right?
a combination. We've had RRFBs installed prior to that study with the school district.
But then I thought they had requested, it doesn't
They
matter.
did, they did.
I had to give credit where credit was due.
Oh, absolutely.
But there was someone who contacted me, which is not my district, but that the crosswalks in front of the hospitals, there was one that needed to be repainted or something, do you know? Has that been done? And it's-
If the pavement markings need to be done, we can't do that in the winter.
Well, okay, you had mentioned it, so that's what made me think,
Right.
because you mentioned that. Okay, so, you know.
It'll get put on the list to get done in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing else, you sure?
That is
Okay.
it.
All right, what are your wishes? Just receive and place on file.
Re- Motion to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file, Alder Eck, second Alder Dooley. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Our next meeting is January 29th, 2025. No public hearings.
That's correct.
Gone are the days of those old fiery public hearings.
Yes,
Thus,
Oh,
the wheel tax
God.
helped resolve a lot of that. but
it did.
Yeah.
We had packed rooms for every single street, it seemed like.
And that's part of what I've tried to explain to people, that
Yeah.
the reason we're so darn far behind on the roads is because there was a special assessments and everybody always voted not to do it.
Correct.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn, Alder Eck.
Second.
Second, Alder Dooley. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Go forth.